Welcome to TIABC's Voice of Tourism podcast, where we discuss issues that affect the visitor economy with subject matter experts representing private businesses, sector associations, destination management organizations, post-secondary institutions, all levels of government, and other stakeholders. I'm Walt Judas, CEO of the Tourism Industry Association of British Columbia, an advocacy organization that works on behalf of its members to influence government policy and direction. My guest is Ben Liegey, founder and CEO of Better Table. Welcome, Ben, and thank you for joining me on TIABC's Voice of Tourism podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Walt. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I'd like to begin by asking you about your career journey. Where in France are you originally from?
Okay, so I grew up in Alsace, so it's a small region in the northeast of France, close to Germany. It's famous for its Christmas market, its delicious food and white wine. Grew up in a small town with a population of 10,000 people, so not that big, but I was living in a home where Mom loved cooking and was working with chef, and my dad was into composting and grew a lot of food in the garden. So I really started my entrepreneurial journey, not in a garage, but on the street selling surplus cherries door to door. And you could kind of say food waste is the reason why I became an entrepreneur.
So what led you to BC?
Yeah, BC. So I came in Canada in 2018, so I immigrated. As you can tell, like from my accent, I was born in France. But I came in 2018 with a working holiday visa. I was doing a world tour around different initiatives in the world around food sustainability, and including organic food, urban farming, and zero food waste initiatives that I was documenting. And in 2018, I arrived in Vancouver in BC, and I just fell in love with the mountains, the ocean, and being able to dine out in a nice restaurant. You could do the same, all the three of them in the same day. So I found that place pretty unique, and I called it home since then.
Uh-huh. So did you go to university after you graduated high school, and did you take courses and programs around sustainability and food, or how were you educated?
So I studied back in Paris, and I studied food and environmental sciences at Paris Tech to better understand relationship between our food and our environment. It was the first time for me living in a big city. It's like 50 million visitors per year in a city alone. And yeah, that kind of led me to start a career in sustainability consulting in Belgium, when sustainability was not sexy at the time, doing like carbon footprints, life cycle assessment, and waste studies. Yeah, after working in the sustainability field, also been involved. So I did an MBA, an executive MBA, more for the business side of things to understand, how to run a business basically from different departments' point of view. And when I came to Canada, I also, so one of the first job I did was also working as an on-board host on the Rocky Mountaineer, where I learned Canadian food, Canadian history, and Canadian hospitality. And so that was really an awesome experience with definitely the best office views. And first time for me, my clients or guests were so happy. They were hugging me at the end of the trip. So that was definitely a life-changing experience for sure.
Well, I love the food on the Rocky Mountaineer, notwithstanding the experience of being on the train and seeing all of British Columbia. So what other tourism or hospitality jobs did you have prior to launching Better Table?
Yeah, so I worked on different in the events sector, more on the wedding side of things, and in agro-tourism as well. Back in France, and also when I was doing those interviews, and of course working a lot with the hotel industry and restaurant space, both on the like more like branded hotels, like from the Marriott Group, but also from independent hotels who are more like boutique hotels. But yeah, love also the featuring the different sustainable tourism experiences that I've been able to notice when I was documenting the world tour I've been on before arriving to Canada. And I think it's very enriching to learn from different perspectives, different countries, different backgrounds, and see what works in some contexts and what doesn't work, and how you can make it all work together to create a better tourism experience.
I want to get back to that because I do want to know about the differences between sustainability in the places that you've been to and worked in versus Canada. We'll talk about that in a moment, but tell me about the award that you won last year as a top 40 under 40 leader, as recognized by Business in Vancouver. What did that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, that was I was very grateful to and honored, to be honest, to be able to be receiving this award, the 40 under 40. For me, coming as a relatively newcomer to the country and being recognized for the changes I've been able to make in the BC economy, and also being able to make sure that all the work, also accomplishment in terms of not only the personal and professional, but also the documentary I've been working on, the Food Synergy movie. So I think that felt really good and it's a great way to also to connect with other amazing people in BC who are doing fantastic initiatives as well.
So I know that much of your work is about sustainability and it involves food. Are you a passionate chef yourself? Do you like to cook?
I love to cook, yes. I am a big fan of creative cooking, how to think out of the box to make something that you would not think it would be the right combination, or there were some surplus food. I like to give the example of my banana peel cake, which is an amazing, tasty recipe that I came with, and I made it taste at one of the TOTA Summit like a couple of years ago in the Thompson Okanagan Tourism Association Summit. And everyone loved it, which is always rewarding when people love that and when they remember, And it's a bit something that is maybe a little thought-provoking, but it's just to show that yes, like there are so many things you can do with the food you buy, and ways to optimize your operations, to waste less and earn more, and reduce your food waste, reduce your carbon footprint, while keeping your customers happy and your money prices steady.
So that's probably a good transition into Better Table. What is it?
Yes, so Better Table, so we help hotels, restaurants, and tourism businesses optimize their operations so that they can reduce food waste, reduce their carbon emissions, and attract new guests. Historically, we've been doing this through on-site audits. Think about it kind of the same way you would do like an energy efficiency assessment or audit, but the same for food efficiency. Food efficiency is where really our core expertise. We've seen, like there is a lot of food waste happening across the country. It's more than $50 billion every single year, which is a lot of money. And on top of that, it also contributes to 10% of climate change. And, having seen firsthand for the first time during a trip in the Okanagan, actually, a forest fire, I mean, for me, this was a strong reminder that, we are in a climate emergency and we need to take action if we want to keep this beautiful environment we have the chance and the privilege to live on. But I'm an optimist, and I believe in the power of food to make a difference. I believe in the power of sustainability to protect our beautiful mountains, and I also believe in the power of diversity to bring new ideas and build stronger communities, and that's really why I created Better Table.
So when you say 50 million in food waste.
Billion with a B.
Billion, sorry. Oh my gosh, that's a massive number. So
In Canada alone.
is that waste in restaurants you're talking about?
No, so that's across the food supply chain. And raised in food service, hotel, restaurants, that's around like 12% of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I didn't think it would be that high even in revenue in restaurants across the country, but yeah.
Yeah, for a restaurant average, it can be up to 7% of food revenues. So it's when you think about the profit margin that are so thin, and now what we're seeing with our clients, they see their food cost increasing, but of course they increase menu prices because they just have to survive, but they cannot increase menu prices too much, otherwise at some point we've seen clients even going in the opposite direction because they've been rising their menu prices just to stay profitable, but then people are not showing up. So it's a challenge for sure for the industry.
So it's interesting because I look at the portions that you get in a restaurant, and I'm not a huge eater. I don't have a great big appetite. So for me, the portions always seem appropriate. I leave very little on my plate, but I may not be the average. And in Canada, the portions seem to me to be a little bit smaller than you might find, let's say, if you go into the United States, where you order a plate of food and it's pretty massive. So how would you go about identifying the food waste? What is the process that you go through to identify that there is a lot of waste that is happening that could be reduced?
Yeah, so first it's about identifying how much is being generated, what type is being generated. Most of restaurants, they don't even track post-consumer waste. So the plate waste you're talking about. And that can be anywhere between 20% to up to 90% of a total restaurant food waste based on the audit we've conducted. So depending on if you're at 20% or at 90%, the actions you're going to have to take to actually reduce food costs are going to be completely different. And that's why it's really important to dig into the better understanding on why it's happening, when it's happening, how much is happening, to take this decision based on data and not based on, I don't think this is an issue. And even having, because I haven't been trained as a chef per se, so I really wanted to understand the mindset around profitable restaurant operations from the Canadian perspective. So I did upskill myself at BCC at doing the cost control course, which I got a grade A plus. So I think I was.
You're talking about Vancouver Community College.
Yes, that's right. What I learned, I learned also a lot for sure how a chef is pricing the menus and everything. But plate waste, surprisingly, was not part of the discussion. And it's not part of how you assess the profitability of a restaurant, which I was really surprised. And because, seeing all this food and all this money from the post-consumer side, which in some operation can represent as part of the total food waste generated and the money that is going to the trash. I think that's a huge opportunity moving forward to help operators not only be more profitable, but also increase guest satisfaction. And why am I saying this? Because, when you see an empty plate, you should see that as a sign of guest satisfaction.
Yes.
And right now, you're in a restaurant. Yes, you said maybe the size of portions are even bigger in the US. That's true, but I think why do we expect wherever we are in the world that if we come in having, any kind of dish on the menu, you would expect to give the same portion to someone who is like a big person who did 3 hours workout or like a small person who is not very hungry. Doesn't really make sense to me.
So you would set up shop, let's say, in a restaurant kitchen and observe then what is not only being sent out for portions and the food that is being given to restaurant patrons, but staying to look at what's being sent back and the kind of
Yes,
waste that's being generated. So the size or the amount of waste, as well as the type of food.
exactly. And that's only on the post-consumer side. And then there is a buffet when you have events, and that can be a big portions, so we also look at that, or the staff meals, that can also be another big portion, and that's only on the post-consumer side. Then you also have everything that's in the kitchen. So, is it linked because you cook too much, or because you have an inventory problem, or because you need some to upskill your staff with knife skills. So there are so many reasons why food waste can be happening, and it's really about digging into that. And historically, we've been doing this on-site audits, and we got some great results with some like tourism operators across the province, from Haida Gwaii and Tofino to the Kootenays. But we've been right now working on a new mobile app to be able to automate our food audit process that includes food sustainability overall. It's not even if we do have a core expertise in food waste prevention, we really look at the whole spectrum of food sustainability, taking into account the impact as an operation on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, including the carbon footprint of your food, because many times when carbon footprint is quantified, the food aspect is not taken into account. And then when it is taken into account, it doesn't take into account how much food waste is generated in those operations. So we are basically quantifying the impact on many different levels to make sure that as an operator, as a tourism business, you can know and you can get better also at get some sustainability ratings. For example, Biosphere, which is also following the Sustainable Development Goal framework. But the idea also with the app would be to get restaurants and businesses who go through our process listed on a map of eco-friendlier restaurants, so that travelers like me who wants to support sustainable operations, they can do so.
So you've done the audit, you've collected the data, you've reported back to the restaurant or the food service operator on where they can save, how they can save, what they can do to reduce food waste. Is there a program then that you give them either through the app or other means by which they can continually track what they're doing to ensure that whatever success rate they've achieved as a consequence of the work that you've done would be ongoing?
Yes, so when we were doing our on-site audits, we were always doing a checking after 6 months. Based on those conversations we were having, we had clients saving 30% on food waste, some of them saving $20,000 annually. So that's significant impact on the bottom line. But then with technology, we of course plan to automate that process and to make it easier, cheaper, and better for an operator to be able to do that by themselves without hiring an expensive consultant, and to be able to track as well progress over time on all aspects of food sustainability. So yeah, that's definitely going to be part of the design of the app that we're about to launch.
My guest on TIABC's Voice of Tourism podcast is Ben Liegey, founder and CEO of Better Table. So tell me what you've noticed in your travels around the world, and now that you've been in Canada for more than half a dozen years, the differences between countries. So you come from France, which is known as a nation of food. They love food, they love wine. The French are real connoisseurs. Are they practicing, or have they been practicing, some of these things that you're talking about for years and years?
Yes, but on a different perspective. So I think it's always interesting to look at all aspects of a country when you look at these food practices. For sure, I think having lived in France and when I was born there, I definitely was very close to food and also with the background of my parents. But one difference that I really struck me, if I just look at the food waste side of things, France was the first country in the world to introduce an anti-food waste law. In 2016, it was made illegal to throw away food. That's just the law. And so the type of work I'm conducting here is definitely more widespread, I would say, back in France. And of course, policy is shaping that, and it's happening as well in BC and in Canada as well, but it's just on a different aspect. So I would say on the prevention side, France was really advanced. However, on the food waste management side, I noticed like Vancouver was so much more advanced, and that was great to see because, you know, in Vancouver, composting was made mandatory in 2016. So basically, any business since 2016 has to compost. That's also the law. Um, but the thing is, like, you know, you need to have both because when you compost everything, like, yes, it's much better to compost than to put food in a landfill. But why do we don't produce food to compost it? In the first place? It's for me, it's really about shifting that paradigm from like, yes, composting is great, but what can we do to actually also save money?
Yes.
And that's really the shift that I was, because when I came in 2018 in Vancouver, I was living downtown in a condo, and I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. I can compost in a city. It's great. I would never be able to experience that even in Belgium, because I used to live in Belgium as well for 6 years, which is a country in Europe which has the highest recycling rate. Yet I was not able to compost in the city.
Yeah, it's amazing. And there's a lot of places, even where I travel in Canada, composting is fairly common, but not necessarily recycling, which I'm still surprised by.
And that's just on the food waste space and for two countries, but then you have all the, you know, what's happening in Asia or in Australia, and there are a lot of innovations happening in that space. Also in terms of like agrotourism and what you can do also with unique type of food. I mean, I remember even in Cambodia, I went to this like bug cafe, which was a restaurant specialized in insect, like from like fine dining restaurant, but just based on like insect food. So I don't say we need to do that in Canada, but it's just very interesting to hear how different people around the world are thinking about the things, and I think we all need to learn from one another to get inspired and make a change in the right directions, because I think we all have good ideas.
I would imagine you're a big proponent of something that's very popular in tourism today, and that's the farm to table concept.
Yes.
And agritourism, and trying to more localize supply chain and buy from farmers and growers in kind of an immediate vicinity. Let's call it within 50 kilometers. That's something that you must be also advocating for in the clients that you have around the province.
Absolutely, and we not only advocate it, we also taking into account in our app to be able to not only, you know, say, oh, we have sustainable food, because like, it's weird to say, but for me, sustainability doesn't mean anything. Sustainability is like a buzzword, like especially for food. What is food sustainability for? What is, like, let me ask you, what is food sustainability for you?
Food sustainability is really the ways and means by which we can continue to grow food, to sustain our population, but do it in a very environmentally conscious way, but over the long term. Sometimes our growing seasons here are fairly short, so now we have a lot of greenhouses that are set up that allows us to grow fresh vegetables at different times of the year that we might not normally. but it saves on having to import a lot of those things, and it provides local jobs. That's, to me, it's kind of all encompassing on the sustainability side, but being able to provide what's needed for people at a local level in season when possible, but to do it, as I say, an environmentally friendly way as opposed to other practices that are quite damaging.
No, that's great. I love that. But I was a bit thought-provoking as well for with sustainability, because what I'm hearing a lot, when you say like, what is food sustainability? Is it what is more sustainable? Is a farm to table that wastes a lot of food, or like a quick service restaurant that is super lean, or a restaurant that is buying organic food but that is not local, that is coming from Mexico, or like conventional food that is local and that is supporting our BC economy.
Yeah, and that's a
There's
hard
so
one
many
for me to
facets,
answer.
and
Yeah.
there are so many facets of food sustainability, and that's why when you say, "Oh, I'm sustainable," like what does that mean? And that's really when we really want. That's what I would love to see a shift from storytelling, which is so important, and having worked on the train or telling all the stories, I know that this is a very key part of driving travelers and making an amazing guest experience. But I think we need to shift from storytelling to accountability. And accountability with like actual metrics, not just like we are sustainable, but okay, like how much percent is local, how much percent is Canadian, how much is being generated in terms of food waste in your kitchen, what's your carbon footprint of your food. This kind of accountability, this is what I would like to see.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I must admit that if I'm in the grocery store and I'm going to buy bananas, and they have a little sticker on them that says organic, I'm a little bit dubious about that, because I just don't know what that means in the context of these bananas. They had to be shipped from somewhere. They had, there's all kinds of things that you've alluded to consider when we talk about sustainable, and just having the label organic doesn't necessarily mean sustainability. So I really get where you're coming from. So if we look at some of the issues that the food sector faces now and in future, what are the ones that trouble you the most that we need to address, both as a society and perhaps even at a government level with different policies?
I mean, I think the industry is facing many challenges. One that comes to mind first is profitability. Operating costs have been increasing dramatically, like food costs, labor costs, property taxes, like you name it. Like it's challenging to run a profitable operations these days. And if we want to thrive as an industry, I think we really need to cut those costs down, because as I've seen, like you can't keep increasing the cost of doing this, like the cost of your menus, the cost of your experiences. Yes, you can increase it, but like what can you make in a smart way to actually be more profitable while being more sustainable? So I think profitability would be a key issue with all the food costs increase, and I think that's only the beginning, to be honest, because the not only yes, there will be some challenges. We don't know what's happening south of the border, and we have a lot of food coming from there, and also with climate change, which is going to be impacting the food production and the yield of farming, and climate change, I think, is also another issue, because I mean, we are dependent as an industry on our environment. Like nobody would come to, I mean, many people come to British Columbia because of the environment and the beautiful mountains, like me included. Like that's what's brought me here. So we need to preserve that, because that's something that we got for free. And if we just don't take care of this, like it's gonna be challenging for the industry to thrive. And yet when you think of climate change, many people don't think about food, yet food accounts for 1/3 of climate change. 1/3. So really being able to take that into a climate action plan, like if you don't have food in your climate action plan, it's not a climate action plan. And I think the last issue I'm thinking you were asking about, like, policies and definitely regulations, that's something that is also coming, and that definitely our clients are better positions to get ready for what's coming in terms of regulations. Like personally, so I'm part of like the National Zero Waste Council, which is kind of a national body to advance zero waste policy in the country, in Canada, and also more locally in BC, part of Metro Vancouver's waste management strategy. So right now they're actually in the process of updating their waste management strategy and policy for the next 10 years. They do that like every 10 years this is happening. So it's not a question of if there will be regulations around those issues. It's when, and it's gonna come faster than people think.
So I want to back up to something that you said a moment ago, and that is around 1/3 of climate change caused by food. Explain that to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a study from the United Nations, like when you do a greenhouse gas accounting, and that's where I started my career in greenhouse gas accounting back in Belgium in 2010. But 1/3 of that is linked to food production, and 10% of the total of climate change is linked to food waste alone. There are some, like Project Drawdown is a really nice project listing all the ranking top solutions to fight climate change globally. So, and in the top 20 solutions of their list, it's available on their website. The number one solutions to fight climate change is reducing food waste. Number two is having more plant-based diets. And out of so before, like solar panels or like all the like changing the LEDs in the lights for LED lights. I mean, this is great and important, and you have to do it, and there is also a return. But food and what we have on our table is actually causing 1/3 of climate change, and we can actually have an impact in the way we actually have an impact as a human, as a business, and as a country, to be able to have that, to act on that, because we have the chance to eat 3 times a day. So we can actually leverage the number one solution to fight climate change 3 times a day, every single day.
So are you a proponent of the greenhouses that you see everywhere that I alluded to earlier, where you're able to grow vegetables in the middle of winter? But obviously they take up a lot of power. They require a huge amount of maintenance and certainly power. But also what we've adopted in Western society is very much industrial food production. Do we need to go back to some of the old ways of growing food?
I think we need a diversity of things. I think there is not one single solution that we need to adopt. Clearly, when people think about, you asking me specifically about greenhouse gas emissions, when you think about the impact of food, many people think, oh, like I'm gonna eat local, then it's gonna be less of a carbon footprint. Yes, that's true if the production is happening in the same way. But if you use a huge amount of energy and it's local, it will very likely have more greenhouse gas impact than if it's like produced in a sustainable way in Mexico, which is something that can be hard to understand for some people. But yes, local makes sense, but the biggest part of the impact is happening really during the farming stage and the stages that happens before that.
I want to switch gears slightly as we come close to wrapping up, because I want to talk about some positive things. Culinary tourism in British Columbia. Do you see more opportunities to grow the sector, as well as agritourism, which has been very popular to a degree, but there is an opportunity to grow that sector even more, in particular to allow many of these farms, and as I mentioned earlier, they have a short window or a short growing season, so they need to supplement their income by doing other things like agritourism events and so on. Do you see good opportunities for British Columbia in this area to add to the mix of tourism options as people travel here?
Absolutely. I think British Columbia is very well positioned to grow agro-tourism. I mean, we have amazing food and especially like all the produce from the Okanagan, salmon that is like world class. So that's definitely something that has a huge potential to attract tourism and to attract more tourism. So there's definitely a great opportunity there. But I think beyond the agro-tourism, because agro-tourism, it's something that is still going to be just one aspect of the whole tourism spectrum. I think the biggest opportunity is really realizing that you can work on food efficiency and making that more mainstream so that the whole industry is thriving, not just the agro-tourism industry, but the whole food tourism industry. And no matter where you are in the tourism space, you're very likely to have even some sort of a small food operation on sites. So having some processes and some systems, and even if you just do it like by yourself with a pen and paper, just start somewhere. And I think I see an amazing way to attract more guests, leveraging food sustainability and combining that with also all the rich history we have around also indigenous food, and sharing more of that knowledge as well. And especially today being the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Always very grateful to be living on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
Final question. At the start of our chat today, you talked about a documentary that you're working on. Tell me about the documentary that you've produced.
So the documentary is called Food Synergy. It's on foodsynergymovie.ca. And it's the world's first documentary about food waste solutions from farm to table. So unlike Better Table, which is really focused on the tourism, hospitality, food service space, the documentary is really across the whole food supply chain. So we go to the farm in Pemberton, to like the food production, to the distribution, in hotels like the GW Marriott in Vancouver. We also go to the Liegey restaurant, Commercial Drive, to the supermarket, at home, and to see policymakers. So it's really a whole positive stories around change makers here in BC who are making a change and in a positive way to enact amazing solutions it's kind of to move away from this doom and gloom narrative. Like, yes, we have some issues, but there are amazing businesses doing amazing work, and we need to talk more about those businesses to actually inspire people. And that's how I got inspired actually in the work I'm doing. It was through documentaries I've seen in my life. So I believe that if a documentary can influence what I'm doing today, I'm hoping the documentary I co-produced will also help change the life of other people.
How's it being received?
Yeah, it's being received very well. We had amazing feedback from the different screening we've been able to host, and we just made it actually available online to be able to make it available also for anyone to see. But we also been using it for different workshops, so that's also something that can be helpful just to learn in a nice way, like what different companies here in BC are taking the lead to find a solution for this problem.
Well, good work. Keep up the good work, Ben.
Thank you so much, Walt. And Taki, it's always been a pleasure, like having you as a leader in that space. And we need to promote tourism. It's a very, important way to not only having a thriving economy, but also to having a better understanding of different people, and especially in those days where we saw different challenges around the world. I think it's even more important to unite each other and to be hospitable. Like Canada has always had this reputation of being welcoming, and like me being like a gay immigrant who came to Canada and who like started business, and I think I've seen that firsthand, and I'm very grateful to be here. We've got tons of waters and mountains. We have amazing outdoors. I just took my pass for Whistler, so I'm excited to enjoy the mountains. We just
Well,
need to manage it properly.
we're delighted to have you as an immigrant to Canada. As an aside, besides the United States, France is the country I've visited the most because my best friend from childhood has effectively spent his entire adult years in France, married a woman from France, had kids there, lived in Paris for many years, now lives in Biarritz. And every time I travel to Europe, even on business, sometimes 2-3 times a year, I had a room in his house in Paris that was designated as mine. So I've spent an awful lot of time in France, and I love the food there. I love the fact that you go and get your food every day. It's not like you keep it in a freezer forever. Everything is fresh. It's good for you. I love the eating habits there. So I really came to appreciate France for that. And I'm always happy to speak with somebody from France. I just wished I knew your language. I still don't know it to this day. And maybe after I retire, I'll take the opportunity to learn it.
It's okay. It's very complicated, so I understand. No worries. Thank you so
My,
much, Roy. It was a pleasure to have this chat with you, and I wish you and your audience and the tourism industry in BC to be very successful, and I'm convinced it will be.
my thanks to Ben Liegey, founder and CEO of Better Table, for joining me on TIABC's Voice of Tourism podcast. And thank you for listening. Please share this episode with your professional colleagues and decision makers to help with our advocacy efforts as we seek to build a vibrant, sustainable, and resilient tourism and hospitality industry in British Columbia. Visit our website at tiabc.ca, sign up for our newsletter, become a member of TIABC, or follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to find out more about our next Voice of Tourism podcast. If you have a tourism policy issue within BC that needs attention, please send me a note at wjudas@tiabc.ca. This is Walt Judas bidding you farewell until next time.